Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 167 in a row. Somehow we keep doing this. Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host, and with me, as always, is a man mourning the death of a Canadian rapper, Darick Oswald. R.I.P. Aubrey. It was a good run. It was a good run from Degrassi to the grave, but it's definitely the grave at this point. Homeboy got cooked. Did you get to update anything in Flesh and Blood, or just the sick kid, and that's all you got?
Oh, it's been totally sick kid.
Yeah, I get that. Hopefully he's feeling better soon.
Not only have I not done anything, but Clark messaged me, and I was trying to work out with him what Road to Nats things I'm going to even be able to go to, because not only at this point I'm not even sure if my family will be fully healthy by the weekend, but even if they are, a lot of our RTNs are on Saturdays, rightfully so, but they all start usually 10 or 11 a.m. and Stark has basketball games on Saturday mornings until second week of March. So it's also trying to figure out how many I can go to without getting divorced.
Right, that.
Yeah.
Try not to do that. Kind of seems like you got a good thing going there. So wouldn't want you to fuck that up to scrub out at an RTN. But I did play in one this past weekend. I played Syndra. Was not my best showing. Went 3-3. There were 2 winnable, I think, games if I take slightly different lines. One of them was pure old-fashioned, unadulterated hate, which was an Arachne that I played in round 1, who not only saw their 3 Mark of the Black Widows in the top 20 cards of their deck, against a deck that doesn't want to block, but they also had Extinguish the Flames X3 in their list. Yeah, I don't want to lose to Syndra, is basically what they're telling me.
Yeah. But, I don't hate it, because there is I think a healthy amount of them to be expected in the meta, especially now. I'm jumping ahead slightly, but it's won a couple of callings, right? It's not just one. So it might also just be one of those things where you say, hey, it's worth the risk, right? The risk reward there is that, hey, if I do run into those, perhaps it's pretty good. And I say this as somebody who, I love my assassin, and I've been trying to find lists that I feel comfortable with, but as I was thinking about the RTN schedule and trying to figure out what ones I was going to go to and whatever, and I would also like to say this is before Clark messaged me, but I almost took that as a sign from the universe that maybe I was onto something, because it was Clark specifically that messaged me. I did say to myself, it's going to be a bunch of Zen and Syndra and Arachne. Maybe I just run Bravo.
Oh dear.
Because turns out he's pretty good against a lot of the go wide decks with his disruption. And I was really I haven't even thought about pulling him out of the refrigerator in a while because of Enigma, but I haven't.
There's one Enigma at ours. There was 0 Zen.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just haven't seen the representation, and so maybe this is the time where I say, hey, if I don't run into the illusionist, maybe I have a shot. So not saying that that's the way I'm gonna go, but I went as far as updating a Bravo list that I would consider playing on February, and I might take it for a spin on Talishar and see how I'm feeling. But I say all this just to say the Extinguish Flames might just be a good call, right? Because I expect a bunch of Syndra as well.
Yep. So here's how this played out. He goon baited, which okay, good, strong. I was marked, so okay. Extinguish the Flames on me. Flick the dagger, so he gets the draw off Goonbait, the draw off of Extinguish, because the contract is completed. Layers, or then does the remarks me, and then gives it the +3 go again to, or not plus one of the pumps. I can't remember which one it is, but he then pumped it one more time to make sure it was going to go over my blocks. So he drew another card, and then attacked me for 5 with a dagger. Right. That's cool. That hurt.
Have you considered just have you
playing
considered
Arachne?
Have you considered just not allowing them to do that?
Yeah, I thought about it. Apparently, I didn't think hard enough. It was actually still really close. Was the most encouraging part, because even though it was super hateful, I was still in that game. The last hand my opponent had, it had to kill me with me blocking through 3 cards, which I was forcing 2 cards out of their hand every turn, and I knew it was an unplayable card that was in the arsenal, otherwise they killed me turns ago. Was he had to have exactly his 3rd Kiss of Death and his 3rd Tarantula Toxin. Those are the only ways those 2 cards exactly are what kill me, and 27 cards are still left in deck. But those were the 2 cards.
Yeah.
So I died, but still you'd have to take the line that lets you win and not the line that makes it so you don't lose. And those odds are pretty good. He was going to he'd play the Kiss of Death out regardless if he had the Toxin or not, because he couldn't wait. There was no room for waiting. If you let me have a hand, you're dead.
Yeah.
So that was the spot. Yeah, and my goal was, because I blocked with 3 cards, was going to arsenal the Blood Runs Deep, so that just would straight kill him. And yeah, it did happen to have it, and okay, good enough there. I lost to a 747 Prism. Again, I played around every single line except for the one that killed me. Great. And then I played around, and then I lost to a Vinset where I took a bad line on one attack where I brain disengaged for a minute, and it might not have mattered. Depends on the order of the cards coming off my opponent's deck, because it was the on-hit banish, and they're at 1. And if they banish a non-1 cost blood deck card, they die. But if they banish a 1 cost, they can play it because they have 1 rune champ. His hand that he drew up with was 3 blood deck cards. One of them was Eulogy, but the other 2 were not 1 cost. So it would have been, I could have taken a better line there. That would have let me have a chance to win. And those are the 2 that I kind of want back. I plan on playing in 2 more potentially this weekend. So we'll see. But there was a lot that went on this weekend, by the way. I didn't know if you caught up to that shit. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to. There were actually, it felt like a lot of events. Because, I mean, obviously we had Calling Christchurch, but then we had the Barcelona event, and then I was also still trying to catch up on some of the stuff from Portland as well, because I saw Majin won.
The Majin win is a story, and we will get to it.
Right, I'm also just waiting for the Majin story time. So
wait, we're going to talk about it here because it is the most Majin thing ever. Sure.
I just mean, hashtag no free ads. But if you are listening and you are not in the know, Caleb, aka Majin Bay, has a YouTube channel, and he regularly will do things where he's talking to Twitch chat, because he's also a live streamer. But he will then upload what he calls story time, and it's usually from his Flesh and Blood events, right? Because he's essentially trying to get folks to go play Flesh and Blood. And they're always entertaining. Caleb's always been a pretty natural storyteller, and so I'm waiting for that. When I say I'm waiting for story time, I'm really just waiting
for Majin to tell it.
Yeah.
So let's start with Christchurch, though. It was won by Sean Stanley on Syndra. So Syndra's won 2 callings in back-to-back, one each in back-to-back weeks. Top 8 was a new, a Viscerai, 2 Zens, an Enigma, a Kano, a Slippy, which is a fun one, and the aforementioned Syndra. I think this representation outside of the Slippy makes sense.
No, I think it makes sense even with the Slippy. I think people are sleeping on Slippy.
I think people may be sleeping on Slippy, and that could have that could be a thing here. Now, to be frank, the Slippy made it to the semifinals against the new. The Slippy did not win.
Sure.
Because
I also so here my hot take is I don't think that's as bad of a matchup as people think it is.
I think it's probably as bad.
I don't think that Slippy is favored by any stretch of the imagination, but people are claiming it's a buy, and I do not think that is
it's never
the case.
No, it's not a buy. That's silly.
I think that you just have to have a very specific game plan, which is that you can't outnew the new. So you just have to play like you are 100% the beatdown from the start, and you just have to plan on never blocking, right? Like go in assuming that you're going to lose cards from your hand, and just hope that in doing so, the damage that you are dealing is at least keeping pace with the damage they are also dealing to you when they disrupt.
I do that anyway. Blocking math is for blockers. Fuck it.
Sure, but I just mean like that's not necessarily what I've seen some of the slip through the cracks builds are built for. But the thing is like what you are giving by giving you that free go again. You're essentially like letting the blue dagger hit, but it's not even just the blue dagger. You're just like letting the dagger and then some hit once with that go again. But what that does is it puts you in the awkward position of you don't know if you're blocking the first stealth thing or the second, and so if you don't know, it's almost always incorrect to block the first one, because then they'll just like they're controlling the decision, so they'll just get you with the second one anyway. And if you're not going to block the first one, then they'll punish you for not blocking the first one. And so the only logical conclusion I think you can land at is you're just not blocking until you're forced to. You're just not blocking, and then whatever they throw at you, you're going to throw as much back. So I think in that matchup, you just want to be as aggressive and as red line as possible, so that when they do hit your banishes, you are not punished nearly as much, and then do your best. Again, don't think that you're gonna like close the matchup gap a ton, but I don't think that it's unwinnable the way some people are saying.
Yeah, it's not unwinnable. It's just not. I mean, you're clearly behind to start, but it's not unwinnable. It's not. Well, God, even AB0 into Kano's not unwinnable. They can brick, so. It's pretty close to unwinnable. Yeah, but I have won with it.
I would take a Slippy into a new more than I would take most people AB0 into Kano.
Sure. Agreed. Like as somebody who frequently does that, agreed. Yeah. I think that Syndra still feels Syndra right now feels like better Fi. It's a Fi with a free point of damage every turn.
Yeah,
which is pretty good. Yeah, right. It's very similar to old Fi. You seem to get a lot of mask triggers with the deck, just because they can either give you 4 cards and still take 5 damage and deny a mask trigger, or they can let you have a mask trigger and keep a couple cards to try to do something back. And so they usually just give you the mask triggers. That's good. That feels fine. And every now and again, when they think that they have you blocked, you have Ancestral Empowerment, and that makes them feel real silly. Couple of things for people out there that may play Syndra and should be in the know. If you play an Ignite and you have a fealty token that you need to use for your next attack, break the fealty in the layer step, because otherwise the fealty is discounted by the Ignite. Not what you want. This. Throwing that out there. PSA from your friend Logan. Battlehard in Barcelona was weird as shit. I went and watched most of it. The stream cut out at hour 12 because we were in a Jarl versus Verdant's final.
Oh, and this was the I don't want to say new, I'll say non-traditional Verdant's deck. right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
This is Arthur Treya.
Yep.
And versus Carlos Carrero. So Carlos Carrero did take it down on Jarl with an epic pitch stacking. So basically a Terra Sunder CNC to just steal it all and run Archer out of gas, more or less.
Wait, say that again?
It was a Terra Sunder attack into a CNC.
Oh, into a CNC.
Yeah. It was back-to-back turns.
The way you worded it, I thought they played Terra Sunder on a CNC, and I was like,
that doesn't work.
No, that's
No, it was stacked for 2 turns back-to-back of that type of disruption and to end the game. So again, really good. Great job by Carlos. Fun casting by Ian Holland and Carlotta on the stream. That was a good time. Then we get to Battle Hardened Portland. Won by Majin Bay. Now, Majin, Caleb, our friend, flies to the event and gets to the event hall, is moseying around the event hall, rubbing shoulders. Pairings go up for round 1. He doesn't have pairing. It was at that point he realized he forgot to register for the event. So he flew to Portland to play an event he forgot to sign up for. So he goes to the main stage and talks to the judges and the scorers and begs them to let him into the event with a round 1 loss. And then proceeds to never lose. Because Majin.
Yeah.
So he won on Verdance.
Which is, like, not even the first time I've seen him do this. So again, for the folks who might not be familiar with him, he plays a lot of different card games. I first met him when I was covering Legends of Runeterra. He was a prolific player. He was also in some broadcasts with me as like color commentary. And I seem to remember when the competitive scene for Runeterra was still going, there was one event where he was like playing in a calling that we were at together, and then trying to play his so there used to be anyway these Legends of Runeterra tournaments where you had like, it was basically like the digital equivalent of like an open event or whatever, right? And you had to do enough to like qualify and get to day 2 for those, the same way you would for a calling. So he was like trying to win his matches fast during the calling so he could play his Runeterra matches during his downtime and then like rush and finish them after like each round. And like
this was in Indy because he was playing Icelander trying to do this shit.
Yeah. And he did it. Like he still day 2.
He top 8'd the calling.
Yeah, but he also like day 2.
He day 2'd the LOR event too. And he tried to concede and top 8'd the calling so he could come to the steakhouse with us.
Yeah. So it's just
I
what
love
he
Caleb
does.
so much. It's the best shit. He's such a fucking just absolute delight. And I think that we're on that kind of turning point right now where you have a bunch of red line decks. And so if you're a Verdance going, so I gain a bunch of life and eventually I can turn the corner on them. So I'm dealing arcane damage that they can't prevent and they can't kill me. Okay. And Jarl going, oh, so I can just dare them to ever blow a piece of equipment? Okay. And I get to block twice with Stalagmite and then make their lives a living hell? That sounds like fun. So I'm not surprised to see Jarl and Verdance doing well here. I wouldn't be surprised if you get some players who are kind of dialed in on those 2 heroes already and know the play patterns and can play them successfully to be taking them to RTNs this coming week because of the representation of Viserai, Syndra, and not even Zen really, but Arachne at the top tables. It wouldn't shock me to see some of this stuff show up. Now, new is still popular.
Yep.
So Jarl might cry a little bit in new, but
yeah, and that was why when I was kind of arriving at the same conclusion, I was thinking to myself that personally I would, and probably just comfort stuff too, but I would prefer to pilot Bravo into new over Jarl, mostly because, again, like the dominate thing is more relevant than people give it credit for, and usually when I'm playing Bravo into a ninja heavy meta like I would be anticipating, I'm running main deck red Crush the Weaks, and it turns out that's also really good against new because they try to play their, you know, low base attack actions and then pump it, and you can't do that if you've been hit with the Crush the Weak. So there's like just extra disruption that you're running for the ninjas that also works against new really well.
Are there any real 4-power stealth cards?
I'm not sure natively.
I don't think there are.
Yeah.
Because if they're, I mean, Crush the Weak just ends their entire turn.
Right.
If that's
well,
the case.
The only reason I say not natively is because, like, technically with Slip Through the Cracks or whatever, you can prowl into one that would be higher, but they can't play it to get the bonus to begin with, right? So it's just a complete turn off. So
let me find out if there are any 4-power stealth cards, because now I'm actually
I don't believe there are.
I'm definitely searching for this because I'm curious. Are there any? It is showing as blank when I do that.
I was gonna say I don't think that there are.
Interesting. I'm into this. I think I'm good with this.
Yeah, so like when you factor in, like, obviously, you know, Spinal Crush is still good against the ninjas, can be good into, you know, Arachne. With new, they can still start with something, but they don't get like the dagger start, so like that's okay. But like Crippling Crush is still outstanding, obviously, it's always good. Starstruck is outstanding in those matchups. And then if you're running the main deck, so essentially what I do is I trade out the choke slams of other metas for Crush the Weak. And then I still, you know, you run the pummels, obviously, so that even if they can try to stop it, you can go over the top in that way. You just have a lot of ways to annoy them. So. Right.
Yeah. And I think that, so my choices for this weekend are going to either be run it back with Syndra, Zen is ready to go, or Arachne. I was able to pick up Hunter's Claves for not the prices that Hunter's Claves are on TCG Player. I even got a cold foil, but that was kind of the barrier of entry. I still need 2 persuasive prognosis of all things. The other thing I'm talking myself into is Kasai being playable. Now, the only way that Kasai is playable is if Enigma is truly dead. Like, if Enigma is a choice that cannot make sense and people aren't playing it, that's the only way that can be possibly viable. Because you'll lose to an Enigma, you'll lose to a Kano. But
yeah, and that I'll admit that was part of the reason why I was saying I was considering Bravo. I still want to run it through some paces on Talishar, because the 2 things that I was going to consider including in the 80, one way or the other, to see which one I liked more. There's the new, what is it, like Roiling Thunder, I think is what it's called.
Roiling Quake, I think.
Roiling Quake, something like that. Roiling something. Where you can just outright destroy an aura. And so it turns out, like, not even having to deal damage. Just
Fissure. Roiling Fissure.
Roiling Fissure, yeah. Turns out just blowing up Mirror Guy that way seemed really attractive to me.
Hold on. I never looked at this art before. It's an anal fissure. It's an anal fissure. Like, that's a butthole.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's gaping, but that's a butthole.
Yeah, it's Mirror Guy's butthole, and you're about to prolapse it. But so, like, that was an attractive, like, potential include. It's still a blue block 3, but if it can help get rid of the most annoying thing in that matchup, that seems good. The other thing that I haven't tested, because the last time I played Bravo was like before it was a thing, I wanted to play around with Cut Through the Facade as well, because that is still dominatable, right? Because it costs 3. So
and pummelable.
and pummelable, right? But the big thing is like if I can dominate that and they don't have enough to cover it, then you can, you know, potentially blow up multiple things with it. So
yeah, seems pretty good. Let's move on from results and just talk, because we got a dev talk today, and it's nice to be timely for once. We could have recorded last night and I had this, but instead we didn't, and we do. So let's start. They went through a few different things. The first thing that they talked about was the mistrigger conversation, and they said pretty much what most competitive minded people have said. You can make it so people, if you make it the policy so that you're responsible for your opponent's triggers, you're incentivized, you are forced to help them beat you. And it never feels, like, it's in Magic, it turned into more angle shooting than, because originally when I started playing Magic, you weren't responsible for your opponent's triggers. They missed shit. Then they changed it so that triggers that were not May effects were the responsibility of both players. And so if there was and James goes into a story about this, and it's not, that type of story is not apocryphal. That shit happened all the time, where you admit there was a mistrigger and then somebody said, oh, that should have been X. And it's like, you announced Y. And so it's like, call a judge. Judge, did you notice the mistrigger? Yeah. But you didn't point it out. No. Well, that's a game loss. For fucking what? Like, I'm not going to babysit my opponent's shit. And that was the attitude of Magic, right? And that was horrible. And it was easier to shoot an angle to try to like fast forward through stuff to make it so that, and Brian brought this up, and again, things that did happen. Like you play fast, so your opponent would miss one of your triggers. If you knew that they'd had a warning or something earlier in the tournament, so they'd get another warning and a game loss or a DQ, so you would get free equity out of them. That was another angle people shot. So the mistrigger policy is not going to change. Nor do I think it should. I think that the thing that probably needs to change is how the judges can apply mistriggers. Is probably where the change needs to occur. But again, a little hard. There's got to be like some kind of a point that is fixed where a mistrigger is just missed. It can't be rolled back, reversed, or applied. That's it. So it's a fine line, and I understand the position they're in. It's difficult, but it's not going to change. So if you pummel somebody, make them discard the card. Make sure they do it. If you CNC somebody or hit them with a mark of a Black Widow, make sure they do the fucking thing. Like, there were all three marks against my opponent on a Saturday. He didn't announce the trigger. Now, I took a card out of my hand and just stared at him and waited. He started doing other things. I'm like, he's like, oh, right, discard or banish off Black Widow. I'm like, there we go. And because I was going to do it regardless, I was going to resolve the effect of the card. And as Brian pointed out in the dev talk, that's what the vast majority of people are going to do. But at the same time, when you are getting prepared for larger events, you should be aware, especially when you're in professional REL, how your cards work and to make sure that you are resolving the effects of your own cards. Okay. Done there. Do you have anything to add?
Do I have anything to add?
Yeah.
Not to that part, I guess.
Okay. We're on to the next part.
I guess.
So, one, Brody Spurlock did release a statement on the events in Memphis. Brody also top forward the call in Christchurch, for those who are wondering. And in his statement, he acknowledged that, yeah, I knew the triggers were there. I ignored them because my opponent didn't call him out. Now, that's an angle. He shot an angle. Like, full stop. But it's not against the rules to do so. He didn't break any rules. He did not cheat. He shot an angle. And he said that he needs to be better going forward at understanding how to be a better member of the community. He said a lot of different things. A lot of people are like, this thing seems robotic. This seems like something that'd be written out of a PR, that a PR firm would write. And I'm like, and these people have never had a fucking conversation with Brody Spurlock, because this is what talking to Brody is like. And I'm like, this is 100% Brody's voice. And sure. Now, Brody is currently suspended until Pro Tour London. And the suspension is for repeated slow play infractions. One of the things that was brought up on the Dev Talk was that they need a better way to monitor infractions carried over from events. Like, the thought process here was that if somebody, not saying this happened, but if somebody knew they could get away with 2 warnings of the same thing in an event, and the third one's a game loss, and you went back through the logs and found that every event there was 2 warnings and never a third, it establishes a pattern, at which point you can say, okay, they're doing this to gain an advantage, and we need to adjudicate this, and there has to be consequences. I would like to point out that in Brody's statement, he did say that he has never knowingly and willingly slow played in a match to gain an advantage. Now, I believe that he believes that. I don't believe that that's actually the case. I think he has done that, but he hasn't consciously done that. It's the same as when people use like rhetorical devices or language in ways to obfuscate or something along those lines, but they're doing it unintentionally. And you call them out on it, like, that's not what I'm doing. It's like, you literally are. Here are the steps you're taking. As somebody who has studied rhetoric extensively, these are the conventions you are currently using and the way you're using them, whether you know it or not.
Sure.
I think that this applies there to a degree. I do believe that Brody believes that he is not doing this to gain an advantage. I also think that somewhere Brody knows he's gaining an advantage.
I really want to play devil's advocate here, but I learned after last week that apparently, despite me saying
nuance on the internet doesn't exist, Charmer.
Yeah, despite me saying the words more than once, I am not saying what Brody did was correct, and then providing players with advice. People said I was defending him, right? Like, which is just funny. So let me just go on the record and say, I would not personally do the things that Brody has done, nor do I necessarily think that it is acceptable. What I was trying to convey last week was whether you think it's acceptable or not, it was legal, and you as a player should have a plan for it. Because let me tell you, one, Brody did not invent this. This was happening long before him.
Gracious, no.
And it will continue to happen long after him. And two, I know we love our Flesh and Blood community, and I have a cornucopia, a plethora of good experiences, but I would be blatantly ignoring the obvious if I were to think that that was going to continue forever. We all know that there has been a large influx of new players in the last year or so. We also know that that includes very specifically a lot of Magic refugees. So people that are used to competitive Magic and used to, I'm not going to call it rule sharking because, you know, again, some people might think it's that.
Every edge was an edge,
but
regardless of the percentage.
They will say it is a competitive edge because it is competition. And when you think about, and again, let me be clear, I'm not defending Brody, but when you consider people who are actively pursuing this as a means of income and people who take it very, very seriously, people like Brody, people like Michael Hamilton, Tarek Patel, etc., the people who are like competitors, they are going to see it as that, right? It's no different than if you play in the NFL, you're going to try to get away with pass interference as much as you can. And sometimes it'll get called.
You are.
But most of the time it won't, and you're going to try to get away with it because that's that competitive edge. It's no different in if you were like in high school wrestling and you would pinch the people as you went through because at least when I went to high school, if you could get your opponent to cry out in pain, you got bonus points. And so we started, well, anyway, there's always a competitive edge, and that might not be what you want, and it might not even be what's best for the community. And I recognize that, but it will still exist, and you should have a plan. So a lot of people are saying that, like, my argument last week was asinine because I kept saying call a judge, but a judge had already been called. But I wasn't saying that that was the solution to this problem. I was saying this should be your solution for all future problems. I was trying to speak to the players about how you handle it going forward, and being as transparent and upfront with judges as early as possible is the only way that you can get in front of it. That's what I was trying to say. And even more so, if you look at what happened over the last couple of weeks, right? Let's say I am a new player. And this was my other concern and why I kept saying just call a judge. Like, I was beating it in last week because I want that to be what people remember. Because what I'm afraid of is you might have a new player who just joined the game, let's say last month, right? And all they know about this incident is that Brody was well liked by the community at large for over 3 years. Still is, sure. But just again, you're a new player. You only know a couple of names in the space, but you know Brody's one of them because he got his face on a card. And you know that he was well liked by the community for over 3 years. You knew that everyone knew he slow played, but that was the only complaint that had ever been publicly levied against him. And now he has this one incident, and he then is the target of every conversation, every Reddit post, every meme on BlueSky, whatever, for like a week and a half. And there's people calling for his head. Now, if I'm a new player, and this is all, again, not because Brody broke the rules as written, this is because of what people interpreted his intentions to be or interpreted the spirit of the game to be. If I'm a new player and that happened to a guy who was well liked for 3 years in the community, I might not want to call a judge on my opponent because I don't want to be seen as the guy trying to angle shoot or rule shark, because if that can happen to somebody like Brody, like, the last thing I want is for people to hate me if I'm new at the game or new at the community. And that should not be the takeaway. So last week, I was not defending Brody, nor was I trying to address the situation that occurred. I was hoping to provide advice and guidance for the future. Because again, Brody is not the first. He will not be the last. Our community is growing. And as we learned from the dev talk today, it does not appear that the policy is going to change as written. Now, again, sounds like they might be looking at ways to change enforcement, and I'm okay with that. I think that's probably the right step. But if this is the way it's going to be, you have to have a plan as a player to protect yourself. And that's what I was trying to get across last week, because you have to, I know nuance is dead on the internet, but you have to understand that two things can be true at the same time, right? Brody can have not broken the rules, but also might have done something that you view as unsportsmanlike that also other people would think are just fine. Because again, depending on what level of competition you're looking for, what's okay for you might not be okay for other people. I mean, look no further than the United States of A if you want to see a dissonance between what's acceptable and what's not, and what's, rules as written versus, spirit of the law, etc. Right? So that was what I was trying to get at. So I just wanted to revisit that because a lot of people were trying to say, one person very specifically wanted to say that I needed to treat this the same way that we treated Flake, which, first of all, for you in particular, I love you. I have nothing against you, but also fuck you in all sorts of ways, because there is a big difference. You could tell me tomorrow that Brody was coming to every event with cards up his sleeve and was swapping out like cards in his deck and palming things and just being an absolute mechanic on the table, and it would not be the same, because cheating at a card game is never the same as making people feel unsafe in our community. And it's certainly not the same if you are a player, whether you're on a card or not, versus somebody who is hired as the face of your company and your broadcast. Just full stop. So like, let's never draw that comparison again, because that is like apples to hand grenades. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, also very wrong spot to do it.
Right. But again, as I thought I was clear last time, but again, I was also like trying to do it in a funny way. I didn't put on my serious dad voice. I was trying to, yeah. Okay. I was trying to guide people toward like the thing that you should do in the future, because at the end of the day, it honestly, this is going to sound harsh, but it doesn't matter what happened in the instance, because it already happened. All we can really do is say, like, what do we expect in the future? How do we want to handle it in the future? And most importantly, what can you as an individual do? Because we can think that Brody was wrong all day. We can think that LSS handled it wrong all day, but it all comes down to, in the immediate future, you can only control yourself and your own actions. And so what's that best course of action? And so I say, call a judge. And you still might not get the outcome you like, but at least you know you've done everything within your power at that point. That's what I was trying to get at. I was trying to be helpful.
Well, you
bastards.
Were. Well, apparently, it did not convey correctly.
Yeah, I know.
A little bit of the intent gap, maybe. But I agree. It's hard to be nuanced in a world of pure hot takes. And the same thing happened with Brody's suspension, quite honestly. You have a group of people saying, slap on the wrist, what a bullshit response, and a group of people saying, well, good, it sets a precedent. It's like, oh, okay. Like,
so the only thing that I would have liked to have seen that was not in it, I wish it was kind of a two-pronged suspension. I wish that it was, I think that this suspension is fine. If you're not aware, Brody was gunning for like player of the year.
He's at the top of the leaderboard still. Yep.
But also on top of that, you also have to remember that, as I said before, unlike a lot of other people who like, they still like to compete, but this is their hobby. Brody's a young man who's been like making this essentially his living. This is him losing money. This is akin again to like an NFL a suspension or something where you're losing salary. Now his is not salary, it's potential winnings, but like that's not nothing. It's not like he gets a vacation. But the thing I would have liked to have seen beyond this suspension is I would have personally liked to have seen for 1 calendar year no sandwiches, to see if that levels the playing field for all of us who can't bring the ham sandwiches, is what I'm...
You see, but then I would shoot the angle if I'd bring ham sandwiches while playing him.
Yeah, no, you would do more than that. You would bring one and then be like, oh man, you want a bite? And then when he takes a bite, you're like, Judge!
Yeah, got him. Free win. That's an angle.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move. Like, we're gonna put this to bed. Like, I'm done with this one.
I'm glad you are, because I'm not.
Cool. Can't wait. Let's move on. They talked about card availability. Now, I don't take hard line disagreements with LSS very often. Big trust, think that they do things the right way. This was a fucking miss, because they come out in the dev talk and they're talking about the price of Hunter's Clave and the market in general.
Which, first of all, again, this is how you can tell that we have a bunch of new players, because not only were there a ton of people who were like, hey, this pummel thing's a big deal because they weren't around for the first Pummelgate, but also they're like, hey, the short printing thing's a big deal. And I'm like, laughs in surgical extraction as an assassin main.
So the thing here that got me is they're like, it wasn't a mistake. We printed it the same as we printed Majestic weapons in the past. And I'm like, and there's the mistake that you didn't acknowledge you fucking made, which is, yeah, you can print a single Winter's Whale, you can short print Winter's Whale. That's fine. You only need one. You can short print a brute weapon, at a Majestic slot that's two-handed, because you only need one. You can even short print the other assassin daggers because they're situational. The majestic ones are situational. Usually you only ever have one.
Usually, but
Claves, you need fucking 3. It's the same as any other card. You need at least 2. And if you're playing Concealed Blade at all, you need a 3rd. Like, did we not equate that? Did the math not math for you? Because the current math, well, let's check the current math today. It's been fluctuating quite a bit. So maybe this has calmed down. You never know. I'm
gonna guess $45. I know you're Googling live.
That's probably, I always Google live. That's probably pretty close, to be fair. 49.
Oh, okay.
Cheapest one online. So $49 for a non-foil weapon. I'm going to make Charmer Cry in cold foil.
Cold foil is going to be 87.
132, sir. Nice try.
Okay.
And making Charmer Cry in cold foil.
Yeah. I knew I should have picked them up when they were like 30.
And now somebody did buy one for 150. The average like market price on them has been 83. So you were pretty close on market. But the cheapest one you can get right now at TCG Player is 133. To me, this was the miss, right? This was the sort of head-assed moment of the dead talk to a degree. I mean, that's maybe strong, but it's like they just didn't quite pick up on the fact that, oh, you don't need as many, so you don't want to give these to players at the frequency because you don't need them as much. And it's like, but this one you do. And I understand they tried to sort of bookend it with, it's only the assassin class that needs it. It's like, yes, it's the assassin class that needs it. There are 4 playable assassins right now in CC.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 5. Sorry, 5 playable assassins right now in CC. If you count Uzuri. We might. And
Uzuri was the one you forgot about there? I thought you were thinking of Huntsman.
No, it was Uzuri.
Oh.
So there are how the mighty have fallen. So there are 5 playable assassins right now. And the assassin tax is already ludicrous. So you just made it worse?
Yeah,
because you didn't think about it? Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, only 3 of the 5 really want to run it, in my opinion, but
I would say 3.5 of 5 want to run it, but
I don't think you ever want to run it in Huntsman, and I think that it's a very niche include in new, personally. I
think it's you play Dagger and Mistblade, you play Clave and Mistblade are your 2. And then in Uzuri, you probably just run it because you can actually do a lot of fun shit with marking with the cards that can get played in Uzuri.
Yeah.
And then threaten the swaps and do a lot of fucking stupid shit. So I think Uzuri wants it, period.
Yeah, I think Uzuri wants it, and Slippy and
then Slippy and Mario want
and
it.
Mario. I think that those 3 at least want 1, if not.
I think it's 2.
Multiples or whatever, right? I think
then the half is... And then the half is...
I think new is, like I said, it's got to be the niche new. And the only reason I say that is because in my mind right now, there's like 3 versions of new. You got CYB new, traditional new, and then including Mark cards new, right? So like that's why I was like, it's the niche new, but... Sure.
That was my only real beef. Well, I guess my only big disagreement with what they said on the Dev Talk. And it's rare that I disagree to that level. But here I was just like, boots on ground, it does not feel like what you're trying to say to us right now. So sorry. So the newest set is High Seas. We'll get into the set itself here momentarily. But as was called out, High Seas comes out on the same day as day 1 of US Nats and is the draft format for US Nats. So they addressed how how that's going to play out a bit. So stores will be able to sell sealed product on pre-release in larger quantities than they were the hunted. So encouraging. They are encouraging stores, not just allowing, encouraging stores to run drafts during their pre-releases, which listening to James talk about that was delightful because he's like, I don't know why we weren't doing this to begin with. Like, you and me both, to be honest, because we always drafted with prize product anyway. So now we get to do it without having to use prize product for it. And then they're going to do the same sort of vendor swing that they're doing with, that they did in Memphis with having vendors being able that are going to be in Vegas, crack product, get the product to them quick enough so they can crack it and have singles at the ready. That's all well and good. But it's fine for drafting. I cannot see or cannot. I think the price gouging is going to happen in Vegas again. You're going to crack X amount of product that you can afford or whatever. Very nice. God damn it, Darick.
You know that's good. I love the double take. I'm glad I got that on camera. You know that's good.
Okay.
Sorry. When you were talking about the upcoming set, it clicked for me, and I was like, I need to do this now before I forget.
Okay, so Diana, if you're listening, you need to go to Vegas and hand out high C's during US Nats. The juice pouches, the juice boxes, because
it's going to be in short supply.
Yeah, Bop and Strawberry is always in short supply, sir.
So you know what else is? The Ecto Cooler.
Oh man, Ecto Cooler hasn't been around forever.
Ecto Cooler is the cold foil of high C's.
It's true, actually. There's a brewery here that does a sour that tastes exactly like Ecto Cooler, and they fuck it up every now and again. But when the years they get it right, it is immaculate. It is one of the best things you'll drink. Because Ecto Cooler is indeed the cold foil of high C. I think that the sort of high, increased price is going to happen because are people going to spend $1,000 on cases only to just not get the cards they need? I mean, I doubt it. And the trick here is, are you going to draft so much that you get every card you need? Probably not. If your local scene isn't big enough to crack play sets of everything, that's also bad. Like, there are levels to all of this. I don't love at all US Nats being on release weekend. I don't. I feel like you are creating, I love release weekend events. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But I think release weekend callings are way more fun when they're just limited callings are the best. And then a calling the week after or a nationals the week after does give that extra time matters. And I know they said on the dev talk that, it's not that it's not that dissimilar to Mist Veil last year. And I'm like, it is though. Because I believe that Mist Veil was either out a week or 2 weeks before Nats last year. And that makes a big difference when it comes to, sets or it comes to preparation.
Look, counterpoint is I want to continue to just play devil's advocate for the entirety of the broadcast.
Kind of do look like Al Pacino.
Yeah. Whether it sells out in a week or 2 weeks, if it still sells out, you ain't getting the product without it being gouged anyway.
It's true.
Oh, sorry. I'm just laughing through the dystopia.
They did say that the supply chain issues that plague the hunted are not expected to have an impact on high seas. So that's good, at least. because some of the problems were just straight up product availability. And that's an issue. But let's talk about High Seas really quick. So we are finally getting pirates. James did confirm on the Dev Talk that there are pirates in the set. So Steven, I hoped you were sitting down when that was announced.
That's exactly why I don't think that the product availability is going to be an issue, because this is a set that is kind of boring, really. There's nothing new. And more importantly, it's not going to contain anything that people have been incredibly vocal about, like, since the game's inception, you know? Like, it'd be one thing if it was, like, the set with the Necromancer, but, like, literally nobody has asked for pirates whatsoever, right?
Not a single person.
And it's not even like it's a popular thing in culture or media or whatever. So I think it will be fine.
No, it won't. Because pirate simps are everywhere. You think goon bait was bad? Pirate bait. Like, that's...
Goon pirate bait?
There's probably going to be goon pirate bait.
I mean, you know there is, right?
Of course. There has to be. So we're finally getting pirates.
It's going to be the exact same card as goon bait with the exact same, like, framing and positioning, but instead it will be Johnny Depp and a blunderbuss in his hand that he's licking instead.
I was thinking it was actually going to be Cervantes from Soul Calibur. But same effect, really.
Yeah.
So it's the world premiere is in Taipei. I did look up prices. I'm not going. No. $1,200 and a 24-hour flight.
Significantly cheaper if you factor in that you're moving there permanently.
Oh, that is significantly
to escape
cheaper.
the war.
I do this show to escape the dystopian hell.
Why do you do it with me? That sounds like a skill issue.
Let
me just say. This is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. You know, I've been saying all week, everyone keeps saying that Brody stalls for time to gain an advantage, but the reality is both players have the exact same amount of time. If player A is forgetting and player B can remember, it's not always player B's fault. And this is the perfect example because you and I are on this show together. We're both using the same time, but one of us remembers without forgetting who the asshole is in our relationship. And you keep forgetting. And it's not my fault.
I'll go back and read Who's the Beatdown again. Well, I
love you, Logan.
I love you too. That was a lot. I'm a corpse now. I've been murdered online. I'm laying next to Drake in a fucking ditch.
Hey, Logan.
T-Dot. Yeah, it's like that. It do. So class-wise, I think we're going to get pirates as either a talent or a class. I think Ranger makes a lot of sense, given the Riptide of all things. What else would you want to see here?
Oh, that's a good question.
I will say this. If this is just Skies of Arcadia, the Flesh and Blood set, I'll be the most excited person ever, but it's already on C, so it can't be.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, but just because it's pirates doesn't mean that it has to be all the ships on the water. Like, it could be mechanologist and they have airships, right? So you could have pirate ships and airships.
Zeppelins? Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
That would be kind of neat, right? Yeah, I think Ranger makes sense, obviously, because of the Riptide of it all. I think Pirate probably is its own. So it's interesting because if like Pirate's its own class, I almost wonder, like, do you need 3 classes, or could you get away with 2, but like a mixing of a talent to go with it?
I would almost say that you make this into Super WTR and it's just Pirate.
I mean, that could be too, because when you're introducing a new class, you know that you're going to need like a certain like amount of core cards to go with it. Because you don't want, even though I fell in love with it that way, you don't want like the dynasty thing again, because overall with the community and with the audience, that wasn't necessarily the most like well liked, even though like I said I fell in love with it. So
yeah, I think that if you do three pirates all with their own sort of individual, you know, play style and cards that sort of apply to it broadly and limited, but then you have enough cards that you have a fully fleshed out class straight off the boat. Not to want to make that pun, but here we are. I think that works.
Yeah. So like that's what jumps out to me. I could see Guardian fitting it thematically, but I don't think it's that, just because we have the Guardian Mastery stuff coming later, and that would feel weird to like double dip on that. And also that was so soon after Heavy Hitters. Similarly, I could see Brute, like a big brutish like first mate style character or two, or it doesn't even have to be just on the pirate thing, right? Like you could have think like Sea Kraken version of Levia, but as a brute. Like that would be interesting. I think personally, if they wanted to do more than just pirate, but like what if they introduce more than just like pirate,
Necromancer for ghost ships?
So maybe, but I was actually going to say if you're doing like pirates and ports and whatever, like Bard would be really cool.
Bard and Merchant would both work.
Right. Both of those came to mind because you got a bunch of like, you know, port buying and selling stuff with Merchant. You could have bards, you know, playing taverns, also playing on the ships, like in some of the art and lore and whatever. You could just have like a saddled fisherman playing a lute if you want, whatever. But I do think that even if they're not the main characters, I hope we get some of those like supplemented or some stuff for those classes, even if it's like expansion slot stuff in the set. Because I do think that would be like a pretty awesome thematic hit there.
I swear to fuck, if one of the heroes is a merchant and the ability is just gill toss, we're filing suit.
Dude, I'm so excited for Gill Toss.
Gill Toss is so good.
It's gonna be there someday.
I bet it's so weird. Gold gets yeeted at people.
Like I could maybe see Runeblade, but I don't think that. You know, Illusionist might be kind of neat. I know Elaine was talking about
the new chain is Pirate Runeblade.
Yeah. So Elaine was posting about, you know, because Brian had posted there's other things obviously that aren't just pirates, and that's why I was like, yeah, give me the Krakens. I love a good sea monster sort of thing. But Elaine was talking about the sirens. I love the sirens from Greek myth and whatever. Doing a bard character who's also a siren, I think could fit. But also along with the siren thing, you could have like illusionist sirens, right?
True.
Or enchantresses, a la like a Calypso or something. That could be kind of a neat thing too. Not that I'm, you know, wanting more illusionists in my life, but I'm just saying thematically that might make sense. Or it could just be warrior again too, right? Like we could get a swashbuckling warrior.
I mean, right? there are swords, and swords suck right now. That, I mean, right? Kasai the pirate would be fun.
Because I was trying to think like, you know, we don't have like a rogue class necessarily, and I know we're getting pirate, but I was trying to think like if we get pirate, but we're also having something else, what else fits in like that swashbuckling mentality, right? So that could be it. Because in my mind, you're going to get ranger, but it's going to be like Riptide and maybe one other, and they're going to be like the fishermen, right? Spear fisherman, bow fisherman. That would be kind of cool if we get a spear ranger. Somebody who does not working with bows, but is like still a ranger that way.
I mean, Kitty Pryde was a ninja pirate for a while.
Yeah. She also
precedent.
was thematically an illusionist because you thought she was there, but then she phased out and she had dragons. So,
wow, she's just Dromai.
Yeah.
Ugh. I guess Dromai was the least objectionable illusionist in my mind, so okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Of them all, I think I liked her the most.
Yeah, the Bluesionist is just fuck that thing. It was very satisfying to have my opponent make a 14 power mirror guy and swing it at me, and I just like, yeah, take 14. Anyway, clear your board, eat your equipment, delete your hand, and still deal you 4 damage. Are we having fun yet? Like, have you figured out that this isn't your day? And my opponent was like, yep, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I was sitting on a Art of Dragon Fire in my arsenal, just waiting for the mirror guy turn. And with a fealty stacked up, I'm like, I'm gonna get all of your shit. And I did. It was great. I am excited about this set. I think it'll be very good. I think once we find out more information, even better. Obviously, Steven, our good friend DM Ramada, is probably losing his fucking mind still at this juncture. But we didn't have any listener questions this week, but I went through the archives, aka I scrolled through our show notes list randomly by spinning my mouse wheel and landed on some questions. And I was like, okay, that one makes sense, even though it might not make sense to some people. The first one I wanted to go through was, and I think this one was fun. I don't know that you ever took part in this, but the first one's from May French. If you don't know who May French is, she was an incredible Flesh and Blood player, but didn't fall in love with the game. I don't know what happened there, but she went back to Magic and has been killing it in Magic.
I was gonna say, I thought she just went back to Magic, and I think maybe I might be hallucinating. I think maybe she played Lorcana for a short bit, but
I thought she had more class than that, but I could be wrong. At any rate, May asked forever ago, like 130 weeks ago. I see your Twitter feed, Jordan. That's how long ago it was. And I respond with, if LSS made a secret layer, what 4 cards are in it? Now, secret layers are a thing made by Wizards of the Coast for Magic that are, they invite artists or other people to make a set of 4 cards, like alt art cards that of existing staples or existing cards, and then sell them direct to the public. They are controversial in many circles as far as WotC creating their own secondary market. But in some cases, they're really cool. I know the Walking Dead one was very popular. The Stranger Things one is very popular.
Wasn't there Marvel ones recently that were...
Yep, there were recently Marvel ones, My Little Pony ones, ones that are focused on squirrels, ones that used Bob Ross art, which I have that. I thought that was really cool when they did it. They did Transformers. They've done a lot of different things. So what 4 cards are in your secret layer, Darick?
Oh, that is a good question. I'm gonna go with because it's helpful if they're all on theme. I mean, obviously I love Marvel stuff, but they're like, I don't know that I could just pick 4. Same thing with like Star Wars, right? Like if I'm thinking about crossover stuff. So instead, let's go with... Let's go... Yeah, sure, why not? We're gonna go with... We're gonna go with...
This is great radio, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I'm trying to think who the fourth one I would want is. Let's go. It's gonna be. We're gonna go Poseidon, Odin, Wukong, and Cthulhu.
So, are they going to be reprints of cards, or are you making new cards?
These are new cards.
Okay.
And obviously they're all, it's meant to be deities or, godlike things from a bunch of different cultures and stories and whatever. But because they are deities, specifically, their design is that they are the first ever mentor style cards for adult heroes. So you have a mentor when you're a young hero, and you have like a literal deity,
patron almost.
Yeah, patron. Yeah.
All right.
That's what I'll go with.
I answered this question 130 weeks ago, or whatever it was. I don't remember what I said, like at all. I had probably take and just do our alternate versions of cards that exist. It's like Mandible Claw. I would do as like Wolverine's Claws or something along those lines. Oh,
I take it all back. Take it all back.
You took it all back?
Yeah, it's alternate art. Kiss of Death, but it's Bianca
Belair, right?
Yep.
Choke Slam, but it's Kane. Razor's Edge, but it's Razor Ramon. And Mandible Claw, but it's Mankind.
Yeah.
All right. Like there are, or Tribute to Demolition, and it's Axe and Smash and Crush. Mm-hmm. Tribute to Legion of Doom, and it's Hawk and Animal and Paul Ellering.
Like it's got to be. It's got to be that. Take it all back.
Take it all back. Arcane Cussing, but in the jar it's just Stone Cold's head. Yeah, those are good.
Olympia, but it's Kurt Angle. And the gold tokens are
medals.
Gold medals. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. We'll do one more of these historical ones. This is from episode 7, so 160 weeks ago. That's over 3 fucking years ago. By the way, this was from Blitz Monkey, who doesn't play the game any longer. Nick is a good dude, and he stopped playing, over 2 years ago. But at any rate, the question then was, what is the process to go through in order to separate knee-jerk reactions from legitimate criticism? Relevant today. For example, deciding if a deck is truly unplayable due to a nerf or is still viable after a banning announcement.
It's actually, in my opinion, it's like a 2-part answer. So part 1 is, in my opinion, time. Because, I mean, you literally described it. When you say knee-jerk reaction, it's that. It's what's your immediate reaction, right? The knee-jerk. The old, like, you bang your knee and does it pop up. That's the uncontrollable reaction versus legitimate criticism, which is when you have, in my opinion anyway, had time to process, approach it from different angles. Personally, like with myself, when I'm receiving feedback or criticism, usually I go through 2 phases. The first is I assume that they're right, and then what? And then I assume that they're wrong, and then what? And both of those have different processes for, like, the first is if I assume they're right, what would be the steps I would take to fix it? And if I assume they're wrong, what would be my reasoning for that, and how would I defend that position? So that way I've done the mental exercise from both angles. That's just how I do it personally. The second part of the question, though, like when they use the example, to me, that is kind of the same in that, like, you're still just saying time, but it's time plus effort, in that you just play games. In my opinion, it's hard to come to any sort of conclusion until you have data points. And it can't even just be like one night of testing, or because you might just have the wrong end, right? Like, law of large numbers is undefeated, so just jam games. Now, eventually you'll get to a point where you'll feel like you've got enough in it, but like a handful of games or one night of testing, I don't think is enough. So, yeah, time and effort, both. I don't know.
I actually
time
feel
and
like
resources.
Yeah, time and resources. I actually feel like that is pretty close to the answer I had 160 weeks ago. That sounds really familiar. I'd have to go back and listen to episode 7, but I would probably I cannot go back and watch or listen to old shows because
Not even episode 7.
I don't know, man. Like, it was real rough around the
Like,
edges.
it's not great,
day.
but like the opening sequence, especially with Kylo Ren, is still pretty cool. You know?
I'm glad I love you.
I'm glad somebody does, because it sure ain't me.
Oh boy. Anyway, oh, Gen Con badges went on sale, by the way. For anybody that's into that type of thing, I just thought I'd point that out.
Okay, I need to send in my application.
Oh, for your scholarship. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna thank some patrons while you do that. We have our associate producers, Andy, Sindra, Jackmioff, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. Then we have our executive producers on up. We have Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon, Brandon, Diana, Lance Good Thrust. That hurt my throat. Oof, shouldn't have done that. Larry, Micaiah, Poxanus.
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt, but Greg, I know you're listening. Make sure that when you put that one in the supercut, you include the "that hurt my throat. I shouldn't have done that." Please and thank you.
Sergeant Isbjorn, Vintox, Chris, Philip, Rich, Sergeant Swanson, Matt, come on down, buddy. It looks like I have 3 payments from you in the Chargers Chamber of Charcoal tier. Tell me when. I'm a man of my word. It's going to get messy. Let's go put that out there. And then also the Sleeper Jackal, who is now 2 months into the tier and will be entering the Chamber of Charcoal next month. I really hope that this wasn't the worst idea I've ever had.
Well, I think the worst idea you've had is that you had me on as a host. So.
Nope, best decision I ever made. Full stop. Best decision I ever made. There are 2 marriages.
Sure? Did you know that Bop and Strawberry won't stain?
I see that on the box, actually.
Yeah.
Man, we need some Bop and Strawberry. That will play in Vegas.
Kind of good.
Yeah. That shit will play in Vegas. If you want to become a member of our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Links in the show notes. There are some number of tiers. Just pick one. Join it. That's cool. We'll be doing a FAF After Dark, I think, next week. I'll have another RTN under my belt. It'll be a good, nice mid time to do it. Probably on Wednesday the 19th, I think. So be on the lookout for that announcement for all of our paid patrons. They can join us for this type of bullshit, but with less restraint. If you can imagine that. If you
you can come hear me defend Brody Unfiltered.
If you need to get a hold of us, you can send us a message at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on BlueSky. Just search Flesh and Pod. You can kill me now. Also a thing you can do. You can also just join our Discord. Links in the show notes. It's free. Just hop on in. It's lively. That's for sure, especially lately. There's been a whole lot of takes. And usually we don't step on tails in there. We just kind of let people do their due unless somebody's just being a complete ass. But that doesn't happen too often. But yeah, Charmer, where can they find you?
You can find me at the Church of Spurlock. One wearing number one soldier. I thought I told you. On a hat. No. Again, this is a bit, folks. I do not condone the actions, and they are not something that I would ever do personally, as evident by my inability to win any event ever. You can find me on BlueSky. It's just charmer.com. You can definitely find me in the Discord. I'm usually being just as obnoxious there. Yeah. I spend all day being serious, and I just, well, like, once I'm done working and, like, you know, being a dad and whatever, I just don't want to spend the rest of my time being serious. So I apologize if I'm not direct, but yes, I'm just as heinous in the Discord. I'm usually posting like TikToks about Elaine getting bags of Cheetos or whatever. So
dicks out for Harambe, I guess.
Yeah.
If that offended you, you can send a complaint to us at you just hit at I'mDraman in our Discord. That's our complaint bot, and they'll handle any complaints. So just make sure you send them there. They'll get forwarded to our actual complaints department, which is Dom, who will then forward them to Flesh and Pod Legal, which is a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal, which is still the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. Yeah, I'm cooked. I did casting on Saturday for the top 8 of that RTN. It was very slapped together last minute type of thing, so it wasn't like my best work, but
hey, look, shit's hard.
No, I know. And I'm just there to riff. You know me.
Like, I don't think people understand that, like, even if you play the game regularly, there's a difference between playing and then when you go to do a broadcast. If you don't do any sort of preparation or homework, like, it's infinitely harder.
Mm-hmm. And just jumping in is not easy.
All of your favorite broadcasters, which are definitely not me, but all your favorite ones, I know, put in a lot of work ahead of time. So yeah. Shit's hard. Shit
is hard. All right, everybody. Well, that's our show for this week. Tune in next week for episode 168. Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. Until then, don't die, I guess. Best I got. Have a good one. Bye.